the Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. All right, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Krishna Prabhupada. All glories to our revered speaker for today, His Grace SRIMAN MUKUNDA Prabhu, and all glories to the Samud Vaishnava devotees. We thank you for being here as always. And it is a privilege we have His Grace SRIMAN MUKUNDA Prabhu here with us today, who will be sharing with us from the Lectura Srimad Bhagavatam. And in fact, Prabhuji just reminded me of Srila Jiva Goswami's appearance. Is it appearance or disappearance? It's appearance.
Appearance, yes.
Appearance. Jiva Goswami is such a stalwart individual in our line that without him, we wouldn't be here, especially with this understanding. As far as I understand, Jiva Goswami is said to be like the most prolific writer the world has ever seen. So he wasn't just a writer, but Prabhuji will share some wonderful revelations about this great saint in our line, together with today's Srimad Bhagavatam text. So Prabhuji, back to you. You may start speaking, and we encourage the devotees to be very attentive, and hopefully by the end of the class, we'll all be spiritually nourished. Hare Krishna.
Good evening. So I'll stop and stuti and introduce Srimad Bhagavatam, and then we'll speak something of the glory of Srila Jiva Goswami Pad, and a little synopsis of Shri Vaman Dwadasi, and then we'll begin our verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat. Nasta Praeshu Bhadrishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevayam Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki Yam Prabhajantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayana Virharakata Juhava Putreti tam mayatayo taravo vinedus tam savabhuta hridayam muninam natosmi. Esi Guru Ganadas Vananda Datta Karinayaka Sindhu Vrindavana Sinavatara Prasida Sirara Pranaya Prachara Ajanandam Vidabhujo Kanakavarirato Sankirtanaika Pitaro Kamlaya Taksho Vishwambaro Dvijoyo Yugadama Palo Bandi Jigapyakaro Karunavataro Ananda Lilamaya Vigrahaya Hemam Devachya Vishundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rashapadaya Shri Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Gurave Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadaliye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuve Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. My Dandavat Pranam devotees. So we want to begin obviously by taking shelter of the most esteemed Srila Jiva Goswami Pad. Prabhuji mentioned Sahadev Prabhu that yes, our Srila Prabhupada, as all of our acharyas did, held Srila Jiva Goswami Pad in very high esteem. He was considered to be the protector of the teachings of our Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. He literally wrote over 400,000 verses. So 400,000 verses. And the spectrum of what he covered was everything from the commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam called Kransamdarba to his very famous Satsandarbhas, which are 6 treatises describing everything from the beginning of bhakti to understanding what is the nature of the jiva, all the way to Priti Sandarbha, which explains what is praying. Also, he wrote a very wonderful work called Gopal Champu. Many of these have been translated into English now, so devotees should try to take advantage. When I was first studying these things, I had to go on one website that was called Granthamandiya, and you can only read it in Sanskrit. and then I have to have a dictionary on hand. So, but now everything is translated, so it's very wonderful. So Gopal Champu is also very wonderful because it fully contains all of the pastimes of Krishna told from very, very unique perspective. So Jiva Goswami, of course, he's the son of Vallabh. There were three brothers, Amar, Santosh, and Vallabh, and they were actually from South India. They were born in Kerala, which is the Carnatic state in India. And due to some political intrigue, they were high-class Brahmin family, but they moved to Bengal, and they settled in a place called Ramkeli. In that place, the younger brother, Vallabh, who later became known as Anupam, he had a son named Jiva. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he visited Ramakeli to show mercy to Rupa and Sanat, who at that time were working as Dabia Khas and Shakir Malik in the Islamic government, there was actually close relationships, believe it or not. It was not always a contentious environment between the Islamic community and the Hindu community. From time to time, that would rise up, and at time to time, it would become more severe or less severe. But in some cases, they actually worked together. So, of course, Rupa and Sanat were enlisted as Dabia Khas and Shakir Malik in the government of the Nawab at that time. So when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to Ramakeli, at that time he also, even though Jiva Goswami was a very small boy, he saw him and he gave his blessings that he would be a very great scholar and a very great contributor to the Bhakti movement. Of course, his father, Anupam of Vallabh, was a Ram Bhakta, very strong Ram Bhakta. And in fact, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his brother Rupan Sanatan tried to convince him that he should take up the worship of Sri Radha and Krishna. And he agonized for some days. And then he revealed to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that his head had been already sold to the lotus feet of Sri Ram. And Mahaprabhu gave his full blessings that he would be a servant of Sri Ramchandra ji. But Jiva Goswami, from the time of his early childhood, was worshiping the deities of Radha and Krishna, and he had deep attachment for them as well as for Mahaprabhu. When his father passed away, and his two uncles had left the Muslim government service and had gone to Vrindavan, he was encouraged to go to Navadvip Dham. And there in Navadvip Dham, he met Nityananda Prabhu. And Nityananda Prabhu took him on parikrama all around Navadvip. That became a very famous book of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur called Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. So that is the journey of Jiva Goswami and Nityananda Prabhu visiting all the holy places of Mahaprabhu. Afterwards, Lord Nityananda Prabhu gave the order. He wanted Jiva Goswami to join his uncles in Vrindavan, but prior to that, he wanted him to go to Varanasi and take up a deep study of the Sanskrit language with all of its intricacies and be able to contribute on that basis to the writings of Rupa and Sanatan Goswami. So he studied with Madhusudan Vachaspati, who was, some say, the disciple, some others say the brother of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. These were the two foremost scholars at that time in India. Of course, we know about Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya from Mahaprabhu's meeting with him, but Madhusudan Vachaspati was also very highly learned. So Jiva Goswami did all of his studies with Madhusudan Vachaspati, and then as ordered by Nityananda Prabhu, he went to Vrindavan. There, Rupa Goswami engaged him in the work of editing. Just like Srila Prabhupada had many wonderful, in fact, I knew one devotee who's still around today. His name is Pradyumna Prabhu. And from time to time, I've written him to get some Sanskrit clarification. But he was the original translator of the Bhagavatam for Srila Prabhupada. When I was living in Los Angeles in 1975, the translation office was right across the street. And I would see him and another devotee, and they were very, very absorbed day to day, because Srila Prabhupada was relentless in getting the translations done. In fact, in that 1975 was the marathon to produce Chaitanya Charitamrita. So it was wonderful, because every time one would get done, even when just the manuscript parts were done, devotees would get a chance, if they were lucky, to get a glimpse at it. So in the same way, Jiva Goswami was employed by Rupa Goswami to do editing as far as his writing was concerned. Now, of course, Rupa Goswami is a perfected soul, so what can you actually edit? but this was a way for a disciple to serve Guru. So he really engaged him in a disciple-Guru relationship of seva. But once one very great scholar named Vallabhacharya, he was, of course, known to us from Chaitanya Charitamrita, he came and Rupa Goswami had great respect for him because he was a contemporary of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he asked Vallabhacharya, who actually is the founder of what's called Pushti Marg. Pushti Marg is very much compatible and related to Rag Marg, the path of Raganuga Bhakti. So he was very dear to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in fact. Mahaprabhu, of course, chastised him once because he approached Mahaprabhu and told he had written a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. He felt this commentary is so great. I mean, perhaps it will exceed the commentary of Sridhar Swami. And of course, Sridhar Swami, he is the original commentator on Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's called Bhavarta Dipika, is his commentary. And Mahaprabhu chastised Vallabhacharya, said, no. Any person who does not follow the Swami, meaning Sridhar Swami, but also Swami in Vedic context means like a husband. So that person who does not follow the husband is like a prostitute. So Vallabhacharya, because he was so dear to Mahaprabhu and he was humble, he immediately accepted that and corrected his course. But when he came to Vrindavan, Rupa Goswami asked him that he should take a look at Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So he was looking at it and he could not find any kind of discrepancy. So he said, well, let me take bath and let me take the manuscript with me and I can sit and look at it. And so while he was looking, he was going, So Jiva Goswami had followed Vallabhacharya to carry his gamsha and loda and things like that to render service to him because he considered him like his Gurujan, like a guru, like his Guru Rupa Goswami. So when he looked at a few phrases and had some question, Jiva Goswami immediately kind of retorted to him, what fault can be found in the writing of Sri Rupa Goswami? That same Rupa Goswami is the very embodiment of the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whom you have so much regard for. What fault can there be? So Vallabhacharya himself very much appreciated the Guru Nishta, means the firm faith of Jiva Goswami and Rupa Goswami. So when he returned, he commented to Rupa Goswami that your Sishya, your disciple, is so high class. Not only is he extremely learned, but he's extremely vigilant in protecting the conceptions which you have written, which are all perfect. So when he left, Rupa Goswami, however, to teach a lesson about etiquette, he chastised Jiva Goswami, oh, you're not fit to live in Vrindavan. Perhaps your pride has exceeded you because of your learning, and therefore you would dare to speak to such a senior person as Vallabhacharya in such a way. So he told that maybe you should leave this Braj, because in Braj, there's no room for egoism in these things. So of course, Jiva Goswami went to a nearby village, I think it was called Nandagam, not the Nandagam where Krishna stayed, but another place called Nandagam. And there he was staying in one cave, fasting. And he was staying there for some days. And when Sanatan Goswami was looking for him, he came across the villagers and asked had they seen any sadhu. They said, oh, yes, one sadhu has recently arrived, and he's living only in a cave. He doesn't do madhukari, means going out for begging. We don't know how he's eating. We actually fear. He's a very young boy. Oh, his body's become so thin. Sanatan Goswami immediately went to that place and seeing Jiva Goswami simply shedding tears after tears after tears. So he picked up Jiva Goswami, carrying him himself. He went back to Rupa Goswami. Now, of course, Rupa Goswami is the guru of Jiva Goswami, but Sanatan Goswami is considered like guru to Rupa Goswami. So Rupa Goswami, at that time, he was happy, but he kept some sternness, but he was actually so happy that Jiva Goswami was back. And Sanatan Goswami told him, listen, Bhai, means like brother. What is the first rule of Dharma? And Jiva Goswami said, Jiva Hingsa. You should always be very kind and very merciful to the Jivas. So then Sanatan Goswami said, all except this one, this Jiva. So Rupa Goswami, of course, bowed his head very wonderfully, but of course then Jiva Goswami, Rupa Goswami embraced and very happily reunited. But it was to teach a lesson, one lesson. And I asked my Guru Dev about this, and Guru Dev said both people were right. Rupa Goswami wanted to teach that we should always have a sense of humility and observe Vaishnava etiquette. At the same time, any Sishya should be very vigilant to protect the Vichar Dar, the conceptions of their line of gurus. So he said on both parts, both were right, but they were teaching one lesson here by the individual activities. Of course, Jiva Goswami also is the Shiksha Guru for both Narottam Srinivasa and Shamananda, who were sent by their individual gurus to study with Jiva Goswami, because Jiva Goswami, especially after the Tirobhav, means the disappearance of Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami and other stalwart Goswamis, was the head of our Sampradaya. All who wanted to study would study with Jiva Goswami Pad. And also, he was the maintainer of the line of our special mood of service in Madhurya Ras called Parikya Bhav. Some question came because in some of his writings, he would write to prove that Radha and Krishna were married. Just as Baladev Vijayabhushan Prabhu, on behalf of our Sampradaya, some years later, would have to prove to the king of Jaipur and the Sri Sampradaya, they're called Ramanandis actually, so they worship Ram primarily, but they're in the Sri Sampradaya. They protested the worship of Radha Govinda in Jaipur. And they said, well, Radha and Krishna are not married, so how can you make a worshipable objective of, essentially an illicit affair, basically? So, of course, Baladeva Vijayabhushan very courageously went and on behalf of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who was very old at the time, and praying to Govinda Dev, he received the mercy of Govinda Dev and wrote the Govinda Bhashya, which is the official commentary of our line on the Vedanta Sutra. So in this way, he established that the worship of Radha and Krishna was bona fide, and he quoted many pramans given by Jiva Goswami, who proved that actually Radha and Krishna are married. He proved that there are so many pastimes in the Purana describing the marriage of Radha and Krishna actually. But because of that, some of the stalwart followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took a little umbrage that our line is basically Parakya. So I don't know if all devotees know what is Swakya and Parakya, so I'm telling. Swakya means wedded love, like Krishna is married to the queens of Dwarka. And Parakya means Krishna's relationship with the gopis, which is not wedded love because the gopis are married to others. So para literally means others. So Parakya means association with the wives of others. Of course, in our material world here, that's the most abominable thing and the most sinful thing. But of course, Krishna is Bhagavan, and all of the gopis are only his own Shakti. So there is no external dharmic fault with his activity. But still, some had difficulty with observing the idea because, originally in Vrindavan, when the deities were established, there was no deity of Radharani established. That would happen later on when the son of Maharaj Prataparudra, who's very famous from Chaitanya Charitamrita, his son, right? He would bring deities of Radharani to Vrindavan to be established because by that time, the Goswamis had firmly established the Siddhanta that the worship of Radha and Krishna was okay. But to do that, Jiva Goswami had to write many pramans proving the wedding of Radha and Krishna. So those stalwart devotees who were worshiping in Parakya, there was some difficulty. They felt, oh, why would our Jiva Goswami write like this? But then Jiva Goswami wrote, so ita likita kinchit. Some things I've written for myself, like in Gopal Champu. If you read the end of Gopal Champu, he completely establishes the supremacy of Parakya Ras. But then he said, kinchit likita paraicha. Some things I've had to write to accommodate others. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he also exposed that Jiva Goswami actually was fully a stalwart follower of Mahaprabhu and Parakya Bhav, but to establish siddhantically that he's God and that Radhika is his Shakti, and that there is no incongruent thing about them being a worshipable objective, he had to write some things like that. Of course, Jiva Goswami also in his Swarup is Vilas Manjari. So, of course, he's fully acquainted both in Gaur Leela and in Krishna Leela with the absolute reality of the supremacy of Radha and Krishna's praying. So, Jiva Goswami Pad, of course, has left us a mountain of writings, not only the Satsandarbhas, Gopal Champu, but so many things. And even for devotees who are studying Sanskrit language, he wrote one book called Harinam Amrita Vyakyaran, which is a whole book on Sanskrit grammar, only using the holy names of Krishna. So it's wonderful because if you ever try to study Sanskrit grammar, it's crazy. My grammar is not good in Sanskrit language because of that. But writing this book is very tasteful to study because it only uses the names of Krishna to explain all the things. So because of our time and because we have to get to Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll put our glorification of Jiva Goswami to rest here. Srila Jiva Goswami Pada Ki Jai. Today is also Vaman Dwadasi, which means that we fasted yesterday for Ekadasi. Now I know that our forum here spread all over the world pretty much, so I can't attest to how the tittis are working in different places. So for us here yesterday, for instance, it was Ekadasi. So we will honor the pardon and break with grains. You can go on to then continue an Ekadasi fast, but once you, of course, break it. So generally what happens is that they'll be fasting till noon, and then you'll honor regular prasad, considering that our fast for Vaman Dwadasi was on the Sudha Ekadasi, which was yesterday. I'm not sure that's, because I'm not sure how the time aligns every single place, but that's normally how this works. So the story of Vaman Dev is also very, very wonderful. Kashyapa and his two wives, Diti and Aditi, one of his wives is the mother of all of the Danavas or demons per se, Asuras, and Aditi is the mother of all the demigods or devas. From time to time, there's always some rising and falling of the supremacy of the Asuras over the Suras, and sometimes vice versa. Because once Indra had offended Brihaspati, and Brihaspati and Shukracharya, I'm going to say this out front, they were disciples of Angira Rishi. And while they were disciples of Angira Rishi, Shukracharya always thought that favor was being given to Brihaspati. Any new teaching, his access to Angira Rishi, how Angira Rishi treated Brihaspati, Shukracharya always felt, whether it was true or not, that there was some disparity in his relationship. And therefore, he always tried to outdo Brihaspati. So finally, when they both were, for lack of a better word, graduating from the teachings of Angira Rishi, then Brihaspati became the guru of all the devatas. And Shukracharya, just to be in opposition, he went and did great tapasya for many, many years. And after that tapasya, Mahadev appeared to him, Lord Shiva, and said, "What boon can I give you?" He said, "I want the boon of the mystery of the mantra called Sanjivani mantra." This Sanjivani mantra is the ability to bring people back from the dead. So Lord Shiva granted him that boon, and he learned the Sanjivani mantra. I'm not going to go into detail because there's many pastimes regarding the Sanjivani mantra itself and how different people tried to steal it. The demigods tried to steal it, and ultimately there was a whole situation where Shukracharya had to reveal the mantra to his son-in-law in order to save his own life. But I'm not going into detail because, again, of our time constraint. But anyway, Shukracharya became the guru of all of the Asuras. So after the offense that was made by Indra to Brihaspati, the potency of the Suras, the Devatas, became weakened. At the same time, the descendant of Prahlad Maharaj had one son named Virochan. Virochan's son was Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj was actually worshiping, because remember, there's the influence of Prahlad Maharaj now in these generations. So he was doing great fire sacrifices, and he actually did one sacrifice called a Vishwajita Yagya. Vishwajit means doing a sacrifice to be able to conquer the whole universe. After performing that, he was very empowered, and he was serving all the Brahmins. So at that time, Shukracharya said, "This is the most right time now. All of your piety has been built up. All of the yagyas you've been doing. You should take advantage now to take heaven from Indra." So with his very elaborate army, he went and he took over Indra's heavenly planets and Swargalok. And Brihaspati told, "Listen, because of the weakness you have now spiritually, it is better that you not fight because you will lose." And Shukracharya now has the Sanjivani mantra, which means he'll just bring back alive everyone that you kill. So better not to fight, simply vacate and wait for the mercy of Bhagavan. So the Asuras, they took over all of Swargalok, and all of the demigods had to leave and hide in various places. Seeing this condition, Aditi approached Kashyapa Muni and told, Kashyapa Muni had been doing meditation for so many years in the forest, and when he returned home, he saw the depression of his wife, Aditi, and prayed, "Listen, my children are now suffering very greatly due to the fact that the Asuras have taken over. And these Asuras, they're not very like merciful. They don't even allow any prayers to go on. They don't allow this or they don't allow that. So then Aditi prayed that, oh, my husband, you're a great sage. You please tell me how I can work for the welfare of my own children to reestablish them in their natural position. So then he meditated for a short time and he said, you can perform the Payovrata. Payovrata is a ceremony that deals with taking milk, but in a certain way at certain times of day and doing certain rituals. So Aditi was very stringent in performing every day this ritual. So in this way, she was able to eventually, I'm again making a long story short, she was able to get that darshan of Bhagavan. And Bhagavan told, listen, I understand your plight, and I myself will make an appearance from your womb and rescue your sons. So of course, she gave birth to Sri Vaman Maharaj, who's Vaman, who's also Vamandev, who's also called Trivikram, and who's also called Urukram. So there are many names for Vamandev. But he is called Vaman because he came in a dwarf size. So when he appeared, all the demigods became very happy, and Brihaspati himself gave the sacred thread, and it describes how all the demigods gave different gifts that became the paraphernalia of Vamandev. And then at that time, Bali Maharaj was performing a great Ashrameda Yajna, because now once he's taken over the kingdom of heaven to establish himself further, he was performing the 100 Ashrameda Yajnas. So then Bali Maharaj, hearing about this, he went to that arena where the sacrifice was being performed. All of the Brahmin priests who were performing the sacrifices, upon seeing a great effulgence approaching, pretty much stopped what they were doing and began to look in that direction. Seeing the effulgence only of Brahmandev, they became completely enchanted and thought perhaps any demigod has appeared, any Mahapurush, great person has appeared. So immediately they offered a place to Vamandev. Vamandev took a seat, and then Bali Maharaj also became very happy, considering that the fruit of his yajna was manifesting because such a great personality has come. So he immediately, along with Shukracharya and others, they went to greet Vamandev. And at that time, he told Vamandev, oh, because you've blessed my yajna and have given so much pleasure to all who are simply looking at you, I'm offering that anything that you want in my kingdom, I'm willing to give you everything, even my own throne. I'm willing to give everything. And immediately, Vaman Maharaj, he said, listen, for a person, especially a person who is a brahmachari, a person who's in the renounced order of life, they should not be so anxious to get so many material things. We should never take more than we actually need. So at that time, he said, listen, for myself, I need very simple things. So again, long story short, he said, I only need 3 paces of land. So then Bali Maharaj came back and said, listen, you're very young, and perhaps you don't understand. If I give you my whole kingdom, then the whole kingdom is at your use. Then you can take 3 steps, whatever, but you have the whole kingdom. So Bali Maharaj told, listen, who is really the giver and who is really the receiver? Is it truly your kingdom? So in this way, he made Bali Maharaj pause a little bit. He says that we're in this world for some time and we claim proprietorship of many things, but then death comes, and who does it belong to then? So in this way, there was also a conversation. This is also written in other Puranas. So then Bali Maharaj told, listen, my desire is that you get whatever you want. So if all you want is 3 paces of land, then you can have it. So then Bali Maharaj began to do the rituals to confirm his giving of that gift, because when you give somebody something, then you must confirm it by taking a vow to do so, which starts with doing achaman. Just like when we take a vow to do something, like when you're taking initiation, we start with achaman, and then you recite the mantras like Om Apavitra Pavitra Va Sasvastam Kutu Piva, etc. So Bali Maharaj took the achaman cup, but it wasn't like with the spoon like we have. It's like a cup and it has a little spout. You'll see Brahmins sometime in India to pour a little water in his hand. So he did the first one, he did the second one, and just at that time, Shukracharya was saying, listen, you should not do this. This person is your enemy in disguise. He's actually Vishnu. He's going to take everything away from you. So Bali Maharaj gave back the argument, well, if he's Bhagavan, he owns everything anyway. How will I be able to hold it if he wants to take it away? Plus, I'm coming in the line of esteemed persons like Prahlad Maharaj. How can I make a promise and then not fulfill that promise? So in this way, he gave many arguments, and there was a conversation back and forth between Shukracharya and Bali Maharaj. So as he was about to do the third Achaman, Shukracharya made himself into a very small form and entered into the portal where the water would come out. So as Bali Maharaj was holding up to pour the water, nothing was coming out. So then Bali Maharaj considered, oh, there must be some obstruction here. So he took a piece of kusha grass, and to poke out the obstruction, he pushed it out, only to find out it was his own guru, Shukracharya, having taken a small form due to his mystic cities. But what happened now was that Shukracharya became blind in one eye. So our acharyas mentioned, this is also one teaching. The teaching is who is bona fide guru and who is not bona fide guru. The word Shukra also means semen. So that person who considers guru to be simply a disciplic line of people who go by birth, that I'm born from a guru, therefore I'm a guru, and so forth and so on, they're not bona fide guru. And also Shukracharya means those who only consider material things, because you're born in this material world with so many desires. So those who only consider material things to be the real goal of life. Just like Shukracharya had two sons that taught Prahlad, Sanda and Amarka. Amarka means darkness, and Sanda means bullheaded or stubborn. So those who are very bullheaded or stubborn about this material world, they're the representations of what is Shukracharya. You understand? So his becoming blind in one eye was symbolic that he doesn't have divine vision, he only has material vision. So now Bali Maharaj again began to do Achaman. And when he was doing Achaman and he was about to make his vow, Shukracharya, even with one eye, said, listen, I don't remember hearing you say the Omkara, because before you do any mantra, you have to recite Om. That's what makes a mantra a mantra. When the bead, if it's a Vedic mantra, in Pancharatric mantra is different. But in Vedic mantras, the Omkara has to be sounded as a beej. So he said, but I don't recall you reciting the Om. So this vow will be no good. You can be saved. He was still so attached to the whole material idea. Then at that point in heart, Bali Maharaj gave up Shukracharya. And this is appropriate because if the Guru api avaliptasya karyama karyama jnanata, if Guru does not know what is to be done for the welfare of a disciple spiritually, that Guru should be given up. This is mentioned in Mahabharata Shanti Parva, that if Guru does not know what is to be done and what's not to be done in pursuit of bhakti, then the disciple has the right to question. And if there's no resolution, the disciple has the right for their spiritual benefit to give up that Guru. It's not that if we give up that Guru, we should criticize, though. We should not criticize anyone. So this is only under extreme circumstances. If you artificially or falsely give up Guru, it is the greatest aparad. On the other hand, Jiva Goswami is written in Bhakti Sandarbha. If you give up bona fide Guru and take another Guru for Diksha, Shiksha you can take, but you take another Guru for Diksha, that is Vaishnava aparad, and your bhakti will be completely stifled. But in the case of Shukracharya, he was proven that he was not having the spiritual interest of Bali Maharaj at hand. So Bali Maharaj then made his vow, and with the first step, of course, Vamandev covered everything in the universe. Then he covered all the way up to the encasement of the universe, and his big toe pierced that, and part of the Karanarvajal, means the causal ocean, seeped through, that became the Ganges here on earth. You understand? So in this way, he had covered in 2 steps everything. So then he said, listen, you've promised me 3 steps. Where shall I place my 3rd step? Bali Maharaj's heart became filled with affection. And immediately Saranagati arose in his heart. Saranagati means surrender. So he said, please place your 3rd step on my head. So in this way, Bali Maharaj put his foot on the head of Bali Maharaj, pushed him down to Patalalok. And in this way, he became very dear because he asked Bali Maharaj, So now that you've become mine, because also at that time, the soldiers of Bali Maharaj, seeing what was going on, they attacked. But of course, they were all destroyed. But then Vamandev also bound Bali Maharaj with Nagpas, like a special rope. And so when his daughter, what was his daughter's name again? I'm not remembering his daughter's name offhand just now. But she became Putana in Krishna Lila. When she saw her father being bound, when Vamandev first had come into the Yagyashal, she saw how beautiful that he was and said, "Oh, I wish I had a child like this." And she said, "If I had this child, oh, I would so easily give breast milk." But at that time, after seeing the activities of Vaman Maharaj and not fully being able to understand them, because the exchange between Bali and Vaman Maharaj was so full of praying, because not only did he give his shelter to Bali Maharaj, but by binding him, he said, "Now you're mine." And this is the first element of love. Samyam masunito swanto mamata to sankita. Rupa Goswami said the first element of love is called mamata. So he was showing, you are mine. But also Bali Maharaj said, "Oh, and you are also mine." So you should stay with me forever. So in Patala, even today, in the place of Bali Maharaj, there's one form of Vamandev who always stays there, like this. So, of course, in the next life, his daughter, as I mentioned, became Putana. And of course, she was killed by Krishna directly, and she obtained a residence in Goloka as a nursemaid, like this here. So these are some of the glories of Shri Vamandev. And we pray both to Jiva Goswami and to Vaman Avatar that they should give us their causeless mercy to learn both from the teachings of Jiva Goswami and the Leela of Shri Vamandev how best we can progress in our own bhakti, in our service to Shri Gurudev, Shri Sachinandan Gaurahari, and to Shri Shri Radha Krishna Yugu. Jai Shri Vamandev ki Jai. So before we go on to Srimad Bhagavatam, is there any additions to the narrations of Jiva Goswami and Vamandev? And then if not, we'll go on to the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. By the way, it's the third canto, chapter 12. It's going to be verses 24 and 25. Is that correct, Sahadev?
Yes.
Okay.
24 and 25. Talking about Putana in previous incarnation, was she called Ratnamala?
Ratnamala, yes.
Okay, Ratnamala.
That was his daughter in the previous life. She became Putana.
Yeah, she became Putana. Okay. It seems Shima Varaha Prabhu has something to ask or say.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, you may unmute.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Please accept my obeisances.
Yeah, Haribo.
The devotees. Thank you, Ramakrishna. The narration of Jiva Goswami about Radharani getting married to Krishna. Well, we've been having some discussions here about the need to read the Goswami books. And every now and then, I ask myself, what is the need? Do we really need this? Has Prabhupada not really given us what we need? We have great difficulty explaining to people that Krishna and Radha are the same person. God masculine, God feminine. Then we also have great difficulty explaining that Radharani married somebody else, Abhimanyu. And people get, oh, how can? Then we have to get explained and explain. And then now we're again hearing that, well, we've had this before though, but I never really paid attention to it. But now we again having this discussion about Krishna marrying Radharani, Krishna marrying himself, so to say. Because well, before we used to hear that, no, Krishna never married Radharani because it's the same person. Now, the same Goswami, for one reason or the other, telling us, no, it's also, they can accommodate the idea. So I began to think that Prabhupada actually had reason when he said, we may not have to bother ourselves about reading these stuffs. So I just want to know, what does it add to our Krishna consciousness when we get involved in this kind of discussions, which maybe is good for the people who belong to this tradition, but our own mind in the Western world, we are brought up having an idea about God which is impeccable, God that is flawless, God that is above everything. But then in this type of presentation we're having, Prabhupada didn't go into all that stuff, but in this kind of presentation, what we're getting now is Krishna is unlimited, all kind of contradictions are there. Yes, but you see Krishna, but this confuses people in this part of the world, no doubt about it. So this is what I want to know. What does it really add to us if we have to be getting into all these, different presentations, which make Krishna look like, very incongruous personality. At the end, those who don't want to accept Krishna, of course, they will have plenty of reason not to. But if we stick to what Prabhupada gave us, they seem reasonable enough, and one can accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and one can accept other Krishna. But then when you start going into all these details, it baffles, it confuses. So maybe you can just clarify that. Hare Krishna.
Yes. If you can, Sahadev Bhu, can you pull up Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 2, verse 117. And while you're doing that, I'll try to answer some things. But our Srila Prabhupada has truly given everything in his books, including the importance of studying the books of the previous acharyas. If you will read the first canto, first verse, in Srila Prabhupada's purport, he says, if you would like to understand the deeper meanings of this verse, you should consult the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which is called Sarta Darshini, to understand the psychology of this verse. So if you go down in the purport, just keep scrolling down. We'll go all the way down in the purport, because we want to know exactly what Srila Prabhupada says on these things, because it's very important for us. So, of course, one thing is also, anytime we're speaking to anyone, we have, as preachers, the responsibility to gauge what the adhikar of that person is. And if you're speaking in a mixed audience of those who are very advanced, some are not so advanced, then you speak accordingly so that everybody will get some benefit. Okay? So it's really down near the bottom, Sahaprabhu. Let's keep going, let's keep going. Okay, let's stop right here where it says imitation devotees. We can start reading from right here, but it's going to be down a little further than that. It says some imitation devotees who wish to advertise themselves as elevated Vaishnavas, who therefore imitate the previous acharyas but do not follow them in principle. So the first thing he's doing is making a recommendation, because of course you see, like Sahajas, others, they are speaking the philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but they're not truly following it. And part of the reason they're not following it is because they don't take anugatya or shelter or follow the Goswami's writings. So though they pretend to be following the process, they're not actually studying. So follow them in principle. They are condemned in the words of Srimad Bhagavatam as stone-hearted. Now he makes another reference. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has commented on their stone-hearted condition as follows. Pahira Shrupalakyayo Shatorapi Yad Tridayam Na Vikrityeta Tarangsha Saramiti Kanishta Arikarinam Eva Shrupalakari Matve. So basically, I've seen this commentary before too. He's saying that there are those who, without having really taken shelter of the teachings of our Goswami Varga, they start imitating the perfection. Now we know in our perfection, these things are there. When you obtain your perfection in love of God, you'll truly have hair standing, crying, so many different things. But if you are doing these things and you've never studied and followed the writings of our acharyas, then it will be Papa Sahajavad. So the importance of studying the books is now going to be talked about by Srila Prabhupada. Scroll down a little more, Prabhu. Right here, you can stop right there. He says, then, false devotees may think simply by shedding tears will lead to the transcendental plane, even if one has not had a factual change in heart, but such practice is useless. Then he says, false devotees lacking the conclusion of transcendental knowledge think artificially shedding tears will deliver them. Similarly, listen to this part carefully. Other false devotees think that studying the books of the previous acharyas is unadvisable, like studying dry empiric philosophers. But Jiva Goswami, following the previous acharyas, has inculcated the conclusions of the scriptures in 6 theses called what? Sat Sandarbhas. False devotees who have very little knowledge of such conclusions fail to achieve pure devotion for want of zeal in accepting the favorable directions for devotional service given by self-realized devotees. Such false devotees are like in person. So now Prabhupada goes on to say, because if you don't understand that Srila Prabhupada himself is encapsulating and bringing into our purview the writings of the previous acharyas. And Srila Prabhupada is stating right here, those who think it's unadvisable, that's like misinformation, gently speaking. It is seriously important, because if not, you cannot get clear understanding of what is what. So there may be people whom we're preaching to, and if those people are not on a level to understand what is right in Krishna, it's better to preach to them you're not the body and how to purify your existence to come to the platform of being a servant of God. But there are many devotees who are practicing 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. They have no idea what even the goal of bhakti is. What is Sambandha Gyan? And Srila Prabhupada has written everything in his books. If you read Adi Lila chapter 4 and Ramananda Samvad Madhya Lila chapter 8, all of these things that I'm speaking about, Parakya Bhav, all of that is in there. So it's very important for devotees who are going to preach to be able to be clear and understand these things, because if not, eventually when it comes to trying to explain certain things to certain devotees, they will misspeak. I've heard it many times. They'll misspeak because they haven't, as Prabhupada said, for lack of zeal to study these things, they then try to, sometimes based out of false egoism, try to compensate for it by just making something up, and that's extremely dangerous. So it's better we understand clearly, and if a person's adhikar is not ready for that, that's not the person to speak to about this. Now, of course, here I have many senior devotees on as well, so I'm speaking in such a way to do both, to accommodate sharing things that are adhikar appropriate, at the same time to feed devotees who are somewhat mature in understanding things like this, which are all there in Srila Prabhupada's books, if the books are studied carefully. Was that helpful, Prabhuji?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Well, of course, I got your point. Nonetheless, like I said, just 2 days ago or so, there was similar question about another version of Krishna Swaya Bhagavan appearing in Vrindavan before Vasudev Krishna got merged into him. And that has been a discussion all along here, because Prabhupada never mentioned that.
He does.
No. Gagamuni, maybe, but not in the book he gave us, maybe somewhere else. But Gagamuni, the priest who came to do the naming ceremony, he was reputed to know the past, present, and future. And he was the one revealing to Nanda Maharaj that Krishna is not his son, and he could not have been his son. So if there is any evidence that Krishna appeared first as Yasoda's son before Vasudev Krishna got married, why Gagamuni did not know that? Why Gagamuni had to tell Nanda that Krishna is not your son. So anyway,
Okay.
so many things from that, the presentation of what Prabhupada gave us, that Krishna is Devaki's son. And Yasoda might have had some other relationship with Krishna, wherever, but this life, Krishna is Devaki's son. Mother Yasoda is called the adoptive mother. So anyway, these are not the type of controversies that I think is mentioned in that verse that we were just read the purport. These are not the type of these different versions are bound to be there because we're dealing with, you know, an old tradition where things have come down from mouth, you know, oral reception, and might get, you know, mixed up. But we've received an authoritative presentation, and if we remain loyal to that, we will not get ourselves confused. Like many people who want to criticize us, I'm not talking about devotees now, but those who are by curiosity, for curious reason, they study and they find all this and they're going to use it to say, well, you people don't know what you're saying. So then we start to say, no, Prabhupada say like this. Oh, no, other acharyas say like this. So this is not very helpful in this part of the world. Maybe in India, they're used to it, but not in this part of the world, in the Western world, no. So that's what I'm saying, that when we remain loyal and faithful to Prabhupada presentation, there's less confusion. That's just what we've been saying this, Prabhu. It's not because you're here, but just 2 days ago or 3 days ago, this was the same subject of discussion here. So that's why I'm bringing it up. Somebody who preached and said, Krishna never married Radha because it's the same person. Eh? And then again here, oh, Jiva Goswami said that Krishna married Radha, and then you just put off, oh my God. So I'm just thinking, is this really healthy for us? That's my question.
Yeah, I think, Prabhuji, the thing is, then there has to be some devotees who do have some level of maturity and have studied Srila Prabhupada's books very deeply to just make clarification. Because if we don't clarify it, it will not become helpful. So for instance, Srila Prabhupada has told directly, and it's written in Bhagavatam, that Garga Muni told to Nanda Maharaj, Nandastu Atmajo Yamte Narayana Samaguna. This is written directly in Prabhupada's book. So he was telling him, your son had many previous incarnations.
Yeah.
And your son has qualities like Narayan. So you should be very careful to take care of him. Also, it's written in Bhagavatam that Jayati te adikam janmana vraja sarada indira shashratrahi. Oh, my Lord, you've taken your birth in Braj, and therefore this Braj has become very glorious. So a couple of things to understand also. These are directly in Srila Prabhupada's books. These are not outside. These are things directly in Srila Prabhupada's books. Also, if you study the festival of Nanda Maharaj, right? He describes there the Jatakarma. Jatakarma means cutting of the umbilical cord. So that cutting of the umbilical cord was between Yashoda and Krishna, not Devaki and Krishna. And that's why there's a very famous verse. What is this verse? Jayati Jananivasa Devaki Janmavado. He says that that Krishna, Jayati Jananivas means he is the Janani. Jana means his own people. Jananivas means his own. His own people are in Braj, but it is a vad. Vad means a theory that Devaki Janmavado, that he took birth from Devaki. Now, when you read Srila Prabhupada's purports clearly and everything, he's going to mention there that sometimes he'll say, because in the Western world, you have to think at the time Srila Prabhupada came here in 1965, what to speak of understanding any of these things, people didn't know what was the difference between a man and a woman and all kinds of things going on. You understand? What to speak of understanding these things. So Srila Prabhupada would use language many times, and he's ingenious in this way, I've never seen anybody write in such a way to even communicate these theories enough to people in the world to make them give up their lives and dedicate themselves to it. So for instance, if Srila Prabhupada tried to explain some of the concepts in deeper language, people would have missed it. But now I've been practicing since 1972. So 60 years later, I should have the same understanding. So now looking at Srila Prabhupada's books, he's clearly saying here, for instance, that Nanda Baraya Dvi Name Yashoda Devaki. Why is Devaki considered to be the mother of Krishna? If you read the birth of Krishna in the 10th canto, I think it must be chapter 3, you'll see that Vasudeva and Devaki, they're praying to Krishna as Bhagavan. You understand? They're praying that you're the supreme personality of Godhead who's appeared as our son. Then Narayan will tell them, yes, because in 2 other births, as Prithni and Sutapa, you prayed for me to become your son. So the first time I became Prithni Garbha, the next time I became Vamandev, you understand? And now in this 3rd birth, I've come to you in this form. But then Devaki says an amazing thing. Oh, please, my Lord, will you make your form like a baby so that I can protect you from Kamsa? Now, if you read 2 verses before that, she's acknowledged that death itself is afraid of you, Narayan. Where would she get the idea to then pray, you should become a small child so I can protect you from Kamsa? So this is where we have to study the books of our previous acharyas that Srila Prabhupada has recommended, which we just went over, because they explain when Krishna was born in Braj, then Krishna came himself via Yoga Maya to the dungeon of Kamsa, gave darshan to Devaki. Then the sentiment of a mother came in the heart of Devaki. At that time, Krishna took the form of Vishnu that was present, and he took that form within himself. Vasudeva will take Krishna back to Vrindavan. He'll use that form of Vishnu to kill the demons, and he'll enjoy his Leela as Krishna. So these things are all written by our acharyas everywhere, and Srila Prabhupada has given us that you should study these things. Prabhupada wanted us to know these things. If it's confusing, it's because 2 things. One is that those who are telling the things are not clear. They don't have Sastra Praman and Sastric reference. They may be saying something that they don't have a true reference for in Prabhupada's books. That's one. The other being that perhaps some devotees at a certain level, they're just not ready to understand it. But we should not then put a ceiling on the entire growth of the devotee community because of that. And loyalty to Prabhupada will mean this. Loyalty to Prabhupada will mean he wanted us to understand bhakti truly. Srila Prabhupada himself gave many of the things. And we sing every morning, do we sing the Tulsi prayers? Radha Krishna Seva Bhavoye Abhilasi Ye Tamara Sara Naloy Tara Vancha Puna Hoy Kripa Kori Koro Tare. What is the next lines?
Vrindavana Vasi.
What does Vrindavan Vasi mean?
Resident of Vrindavan.
Why do I want to sing this for 50 years and I have no idea about going to Vrindavan?
Right, that's not the question, Prabhu.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but our practice should be lined up with our actual aspiration in practice. Because if not, Rupa Goswami says this will be called Niyama Agraha. I understand your point. If it becomes confusing, the first time I was preaching in Africa, I was not preaching about this, right? And even things that I knew at a certain level, I was still preaching, yes, you should try to understand you're not this body. You understand? Because it was appropriate. It didn't depend on my individual understanding. It was my service to Srila Prabhupada to speak how people will come to bhakti. This material world is birth, old age, disease, and death. That is still true. That hasn't changed. And that if you want to get free from birth, old age, disease, and death, you should try to understand your original identity as the soul. That has not changed. But if you're practicing for 20 or 30 years, especially if you decide to take disciples and so forth, you need to be very clear about the goal of practice of bhakti. Other than that, what will happen is that there'll be confusion at a certain point that can't be reconciled.
Yeah, okay, Prabhu.
Yeah.
I mean, if I have doubt about something, I cannot preach it.
Yes,
right?
true. Yes.
So then then I have to put those doubts to somebody that I think can clear it, and that's what I'm doing.
Oh,
Yeah.
Now,
very good, Prabhuji.
one point, 2 points are here. Or so many points about this, and until I'm clear, I cannot push it. I just stick to what Prabhupada get. Now, Vrindavan said to be a manifestation of Goloka on earth. But then the people of Krishna that were just mentioned here, those people were not originally in Vrindavan. They were in Mahavan, I guess, or Talavan or something. They moved to Vrindavan later on because they were being disturbed by demons or by so many things happening. So they were not originally in Vrindavan. That is the story. They moved. Upananda, they call a meeting. They were being too much disturbed, and they had to move to Vrindavan. So talking about Vrindavan being the original home, but it wasn't the original home of the people. They moved there later on. So that's one. Another thing is you give two reasons why people may not be able to clear this. Maybe they're not giving Shastra Pramana. But all what you've said, all the Shastra you quoted, did not contradict what I understood. And you have not given any Shastra Pramana to corroborate the fact that Yasoda gave birth to Krishna, and Krishna went to Mathura to appear as Narayan, and then later being brought back. You haven't given any Shastra Pramana for that. So I cannot just take your word for it. You have to show us where you mentioned that he was born first in Vrindavan, and then he went to Mathura to appear as Narayan before he was again being brought back. That I would like to see.
Well, thank you, SRIMAN Varahacharya Prabhu. I'm not trying to cut you short. Shri Mukunda Prabhu, thank you for speaking and thank you for the responses. If we still have time, maybe we can revisit this topic.
Yes.
But Mother Gail has had her hand up for so long. That reminds me of how Krishna lifted the Govardhan hill. I mean, when I left my hand in the air for a couple of minutes without having any weight on it, I feel so much pain. So I believe Mother Gail must be hurting by raising her hand for so long. Gail Devi, please, you may unmute.
I say thank you. Thank goodness for technology. It makes my job a lot easier.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, Prabhu, if I can go back to the story of Bali Maharaj.
Yes.
After Vamanadev put his foot on, no, I think it was Vamanadev, he needed a place to put his third step. Yeah. And at that point, Bali Maharaj, you said, was inspired with so much affection for Vamanadev, and therefore offered his head. I don't know which came first, the affection or the offering of his head. But in any case, I'm wondering, why is it at that point in the story, Bali Maharaj had so much affection for Vamana? I didn't understand where that came from.
Actually, it comes from his grandfather. The grandfather of Bali Maharaj was Prahalad.
Yes.
Remember, Nrsinga gave him the blessing that generations of his family would be delivered. So when Vamandev appeared there, he first saw Vamandev in Abut. Abut means like in wonder. He's so beautiful, so charming. And Ratnamala, his daughter, also saw the same way. He's so beautiful, so effulgent. Then he felt blessed that he's attended my yajna, my Ashwamedha yajna. So in this way, his sentiment was growing and growing and growing. But the sentiment that you have towards Bhagavan doesn't become fruitful. This is the teaching that's present here until you do Saranagati. When you do Saranagati, it's when the actual love begins to flourish. So he realizes at this point that my affection is there, but I can't fulfill this affection until I give by his mercy, he arranged this till I give myself to him. So he then said, place your third step on my head. This is the symbol of Saranagati.
Okay, and so that affection welled in his heart. Would you say? I mean, I'm not trying to be over technical here, but I'm just trying to understand the flow of things. You know, did that affection well in his heart at the point that he decided to give his head for the third step, or was it before or right after?
Yeah, I don't know if we have like a metric for it, like in terms of calculating the time frame of how it happens, but the idea becomes, because the teaching here is about Saranagati. That's one of the main points of Bali Maharaj's Leela with Vamandev. So, but by the statements that are made of when Vaman comes to the Yagyashal, by his mood, by his willingness to give everything, his kingdom even, these are the signs of having affection towards Vamandev.
Yeah, and so based on that answer, I would say that affection welled in his heart at the moment that in his heart he knew that he was just going to give his everything, including his very self.
Yes, very well could be.
To Vamanadev. Okay, and also after Vamanadev basically sent him down towards Patalalok, right? We said that Vamanadev gave shelter to Bali. How did that shelter manifest?
No, Bali Maharaj asked that you should always stay with me. So it's mentioned that Bali Maharaj keeps one form of Vamandev there with him in Patala. Understand? So we could think it's the actual form because it doesn't mention it's a deity. But in this way, the Lord is reciprocating with Bali Maharaj that he's always there with him.
Oh, so that's the shelter. Okay. So this is a bit of a tangent, but you brought it up that Devaki had already acknowledged Narayan, basically as God. She understood that was God, but then she wanted to protect God, right? So how did that come about? How to reconcile this apparent contradiction that she knew he was God, but still felt, is that just Yogabaya or what?
Yes, it's explained. These are why we have to study these books deeply. The meaning of the word Yashoda, Yasha means fame. Da means to give, the dati. So it's explained by our acharyas that Yashoda means that person who gave fame to Devaki of motherhood. So at the time that Krishna, again, had already been born, I don't want to go back into the controversy, the whole thing, trying to avoid that at the time he had been born, then at that time, Mother Yashoda's heart was filled with motherhood. The evidence for this is in the Gopal Champu of Jiva Goswami. He writes it very clearly there. So then Krishna goes to the dungeon there by the influence of Yogmaya Shakti and gives darshan to Devaki. You understand? But then it mentions Yashoda literally means giving the fame of motherhood to Devaki. You understand? And therefore the Padma Purana quotes Nanda Baraya Dvi Namni Yashoda Devaki. Therefore Yashoda has two names, Yashoda and Devaki. Nanda Barai means the wife of Nanda Maharaj, has Dvi Namne, two names, Yashoda Devaki. Why? Because though she gave birth to Krishna, she's giving the fame of motherhood to Devaki.
So Devaki is also known as Yashoda, you're saying? No?
No, Yashoda is also known as Devaki because she gave fame of motherhood to Devaki.
It is Yashoda who is also known as Devaki.
So in this regard also, I just want to read one thing here. This is from the 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam. This is going to be chapter 5. This is the first verse, and this is Srila Prabhupada's purport. Let me read the verse because it's important. Shri Sukuvacha Nandastu Atmajo Utpane Jatalado Mahatmanaha Ayuya Vipram Virajan Shnata Suchya Lankrita Vachayitva Swashtayanam Jat, this is the important line, Jatta Karma Atmajasyavai. So he's saying here, Shukadev Goswami said, Nanda Maharaj was naturally very magnanimous, and when Lord Shri Krishna appeared as his son, Srila Prabhupada's writing here, appeared as his son, he was overwhelmed with jubilation. Therefore, after bathing and purifying himself and dressing himself properly, he invited Brahmins who knew how to recite the Vedic mantras. After having these qualified Brahmins recite auspicious Vedic hymns, he arranged the Vedic birth ceremony celebrated for his newborn child according to rules and regulations. This is called the Jatta Karma, cutting of the umbilical cord. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, previous Acharya, has discussed the significance of the words Nandas tu. The word tu, he says, is not used to fulfill the sentence, because without tu, the sentence is complete. So he's saying it wasn't just used as a grammatical filler. Therefore, the word tu is used for a different reason. Although Krishna appeared as the son of Devaki, Devaki and Vasudeva did not enjoy the Jatta Karma, the festival of the birth ceremony. Let me read it again. Krishna appeared as the son of Devaki. Appeared means he appeared as Lord Narayan. He did not appear as Krishna. He appeared as Vasudeva, Lord Narayan. So he says, therefore, Devaki and Vasudeva did not enjoy the Jatta Karma, which is the birth ceremony. This is Prabhupada's purport, so I'm not reading from another book. The festival of birth ceremony. Instead, this ceremony was enjoyed by Nanda Maharaj. As stated here, Nandastu Atmajo Utpane Jatalado Manahatmanaha. When Nanda Maharaj met Vasudeva, Vasudeva could not disclose that your son Krishna is my son. You are his father in a different way, spiritually. Because of fear of Kamsa, Vasudeva could not observe the festival of Krishna's birth. Nanda Maharaj, however, took full advantage of this opportunity. So here Srila Prabhupada is describing where Krishna is born, where he appeared, etc. So if anybody wants the reference for this, what to speak of Gopal Champa, I'll just leave it in Srila Prabhupada's books. Srimad Bhagavatam 10, chapter 5, verses 1 and 2.
Well, Hare Krishna. Mother Gail, thank you for your questions, and Shima Mukunda Prabhu, thank you for the answers. We've been here for
without touching the verses.
And yes, it will be very, very disastrous
if we don't do that.
If we left here without touching on Amala Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes.
So I humbly suggest that
I agree.
We switch back to Srimad Bhagavatam, and if even it's just a matter of reading the texts.
Yes, exactly.
Report and nothing else, that should be fine.
Yeah,
we touched the Bhagavatam many times, but okay.
But it's important. No, it's important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So I'll just read the verses. If there's any questions, then we could do that for a little while.
Yes.
And go on.
Yes. Hare Krishna.
Pulaho nabito jagyane pulatyaha kanayo rishihi angira mukhato kshno atri marichi manaso bhavat. Pulatya was generated from the ears, Angira from the mouth, Atri from the eyes, and Marichi from the mind, and Pulaha from the navel of Brahma. Next verse. Dhamashtana dakshinato yatra narayanaha shrayam adamo prishtato yashman mrityuloka bhayankaraha. Religion was manifested from the breast of Brahma, wherein is seated the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan. And irreligion appeared from his back, where horrible death takes place for the living entity. I'll show the Prabhupada's purport. That religion was manifested from the place where the personality of Godhead is personally situated is very significant, because religion means devotional service to the personality of Godhead, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita as well as the Bhagavatam. In Bhagavad Gita, the last instruction is to give up all other engagements in the name of religion and take shelter of the personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam also confirms that the highest perfection of religion is that which leads to devotional service of the Lord, unmotivated and unhampered by material impediments. Religion in its perfect form is a devotional service of the Lord, and irreligion is just the opposite. The heart is the most important part of the body, whereas the back is the most neglected part. When one is attacked by an enemy, one is apt to endure attacks from the back and protect himself carefully from all attacks on the chest. All types of irreligion spring from the back of Brahma, whereas real religion, the devotional service of the Lord, is generated from the chest, the seat of Narayan. Anything which does not lead to the devotional service of the Lord is irreligion, and anything which leads to the devotional service of the Lord is called religion. So, of course, this is the section that Maitreya Rishi, he originally heard Srimad Bhagavatam from Parashar Muni. There's like a Shiksha Parampara coming from Parasara, Shakayana Muni, back to Sanat Kumar, all the way back to Ananta Sage. So he's speaking on Bhagavatam according to the 10 categories that must be spoken in Bhagavatam, or any Mahapurana. And that is Saga Visaga. So the first two things are, Sarga means the original manifestation of all the elements for creation by the Lord himself. But then all of those elements have to be engineered into what we see now as the material universes, etc., etc. That is called Visarga or Visesh Sarga. So the person in charge of that is our Lord Brahma. So before Brahma is able to do this service, he first has to become enlightened, because if he's not enlightened, then the purpose for what he's doing the creation would be missed. So this is what's described in Brahma Samhita about Brahma's journey. He found himself on the lotus stem coming from the navel of Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, and there he could not ascertain what was going on. Who am I? What is this place? Who was the source of this place? So Brahma, because he is so intelligent, he began using his own intelligence to try to discern that. So it mentions he traveled to the bottom of the lotus stem, back to the top, but he could not ascertain what was what. So then, by the mercy of the Lord, he heard two syllables. Anybody remember what the two syllables are?
Tapa.
Yes, Sahadev was on point. Tapa. So, but the thing is, what does tapa mean? Generally, we translate it as austerity. But here, tapa means saranagati, or surrender. It's explained that because to obtain bhakti, it'll only come through saranagati. You understand? Because if you go, let's say if we just take this word to mean tapasya, then does that mean people could obtain pure love of God by going and sitting in a ring of fire or laying on a bed of nails, or, you understand? So the real tapasya is the giving up of the independence and surrendering to Guru, via Guru to Mahaprabhu, to Radha and Krishna. So that is the real tapasya. And literally the word tapasya comes from two Sanskrit vargas. Like in Sanskrit, you have like ta, ta, da, da, nya, and then pa, pa, ba, ba, ma. So those two syllables, that's what they mean. Ta means God, essentially. Ta means that which is illumined. T-H-A, ta, means that which gives protection. Da means dadati, it means to give. And D-H-A, dha, means to hold or maintain. And nya, which is the last in that varga, means to negate. So that illuminated person who's God, who gives protection, who gives his mercy, and who maintains our endeavors in bhakti, and he negates pa. P-A means parishram, it means hard work in the material world, struggling with material existence. P-H-A, pa, means fena, the degradation that happens to the jiva when they're overcome by birth, old age, disease, death, and the aryatmik, adibautic, and adivic miseries. They become completely destroyed. That's called fena. So foam comes from the mouth as a symptom of that. Ba means bondage. B-A. B-H-A means bhaya, or fear. And ma means mrityu, marin, or death. So that illuminated person who gives us protection and gives his mercy, protects our bhakti, he negates the struggle in material existence, the results of that struggle, he removes bondage, removes fear of death, That person is what is meant in the syllables tapa. Then when Brahma heard this, he realized it, and therefore he began to perform bhakti for thousands of years. Then he will receive initiation, first by Divya Saraswati with the Gopal mantra, which if anybody here has initiation, many of you do. So that 6th line of our mantra, it's called Gopal mantra. He received that when he became realized in Gopal mantra. Krishna's flute then was played, and from Krishna's flute came Kam Gayatri. Now that Brahma was realized, he could engage in the service with understanding the purpose of the creation. So the first thing that he had to do was create the nescience factors of this creation, right? So there's different descriptions of them, but one description is avidya, asmita, rag, dvesh, and abhinavesh. So it means false identity. Avidya means ignorance itself. Asmita means a false identity. Rag and dvesh mean the duality of not being situated in our original nature. So looking for happiness and going through distress. Abhinavesh means the inextricable absorption in material energy that doesn't allow us to free ourselves from it until we get the mercy of Guru, etc., etc. So he first created those things, but then he felt, I need to create something that will counteract that. So then from his mind was produced the 4 Kumaras. And the 4 Kumaras are the very personification of Vairagya, Tapasya, knowledge, and austerity. So Gyan, Vairagya, Yoga, and Tapasya. So Yoga, knowledge, Tapasya, and renunciation are personified in the 4 Kumaras. So of course, when Brahma asked them, oh, so now you should produce progeny to help populate the world, then they said, of course not, because anybody who's adept in those things also doesn't want to have anything to do with the material world. So long story short, because of our time, of course, he then becomes somewhat frustrated. From him, the Rudras appear. After that, when Brahma does deep meditation, after the scenario with the Rudras, he manifests Narada from his heart. And Narada is the personification of bhakti. Narada has so many different meanings, but one meaning is Nara Varam Dadati Iti Narada. That person who gives bhakti to others, he is called Narada. And Nara Varam means he gives the best thing, which is bhakti, to mankind. Right? There's other meanings also. So then Narada also doesn't want to make children. So then he produces the Saptarishis, then eventually Prajapatis, and this way the world will become populated. But it's also described that unless there is and I'll end with this, unless there is a original form of something, it can't exist in the creation. Because if it doesn't exist in Bhagavan, how will it exist in the creation? So all the different things are given to be presented in what's called the Virat Roop. In other words, the super soul that we have manifests a form, also called Virat Roop. And in that form is hearing, seeing, touching, smelling, all the sense objects, everything. All of those things are presented in the Virat Roop. And now that's also being described here. That, for instance, from the back of the Virat Roop, right? And when they say Brahma, because we look in Laghu Bhagavatamrita, it's going to say that the Virat Roop is also present with Brahma, right? So from the back comes irreligion. From the chest where Lord Narayan is comes religion, etc., etc.
Virat Roop is super soul?
No, my wife is asking a question. So Virat Roop is not actually the super soul, but it comes from Antaryami. Okay. Virat Roop, according to Sastra, is not an eternal form of Bhagavan. So Krishna doesn't have a form called Virat Roop. But if there was no origin of all the different things in the material world, then we couldn't have it, because that would mean there was a creation that wasn't created by God. So even the positions of Brahma, Shiva, etc., that's also originally a position of God. And then he allows, in the position of Brahma, sometimes a jiva to occupy that position if he's qualified. If not, Krishna occupies that position himself. Or Vishnu, rather, occupies that position himself. All right, so we did take a lot of time with everything else. And hopefully that it was okay. I mean, sometimes we have discussions. Actually, in that verse that we were reading from, Siddhanta Baili Chittana Kara Ulas. Sometimes we have to hear these things because we cannot be lazy about Siddhant. So we should not feel any pinching or any animosity, anything. We should feel this is very much love and affection, right? That we want to try to understand the best as we can. It's also for my edification. So I'm not in a position to teach per se. I'm simply sharing what, and by practice and by study of Srila Prabhupada books deeply, that I've understood. Okay, not so many more questions because I think I got to check with Sahadev.
Hare Krishna. Well, thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the wonderful Krishna Katha shared with us all today. And of course, this is Hare Krishna Africa. And I think one of our signatures is that we try to probe, we ask questions, but our questioning is not in the mood of challenge. It's in the mood of wanting to know more and wanting to understand, because if we do anything without proper understanding, then most likely at some point we're going to give it up. If we have understanding of what we're doing and why we're doing, it's just like I do not eat meat, fish, eggs. And the reason I do not eat meat, fish, egg is because I'm a member of ISKCON, Hare Krishna, and it is their principles. Now, if I understand why this movement is asking me not to eat meat, fish, eggs, and then I understand and I accept it, then if even I'm unfortunate enough to disassociate myself with ISKCON, once I know that it's good for me, then I'm still going to practice it. So understanding is very, very important. So that is what we try to do here. And sometimes a person asking a question may not necessarily be the person with such doubts, but such questions are asked to be cleared for the benefit of others, just like Arjun did, just as Maharaj Parikshit did. So that is what we try to do. And we can't thank you enough, Prabhuji, for all the explanations and the references. And the devotees who also, especially those who asked questions, we thank you so much, because it is said if one is so dumb, he wouldn't even have any question to ask in the first place. So asking questions themselves indicate that the questioner is in knowledge.
Yes.
So we thank you all. But now going back to the similarly contentious topics, it's not going to, I mean, it did not start here today. It's been going on for so long, and it's not going to end today. It will keep hanging around us. I remember one time, one devotee, I can't think of the name, who spoke on this same platform. And this devotee was saying, isn't it so interesting how our acharyas appear to say contradictory things just for us to go back into the scriptures and have a detailed reading and wanting to understand what this means as compared to what the other statement means, which like they look contradictory, but as we understand, there are no contradictions. Srimad Prabhu was also saying that these questions are coming up, not because your humble self, you were here, you're speaking, because it came up a couple of days ago. Yes. Not just even this week, it's been coming on and off, on and off. And one of our ISKCON Swamis was here, and a similar question was asked to him. And I remember he was saying that this is the beauty of Krishna. Krishna is not just one-sided. Krishna has so many aspects to himself. Like Krishna may say one word, but it means so many things. It has to be explained by the acharyas. So all in all, I would like to suggest, I'm nobody to suggest anything to anybody, but putting on the cap of being a moderator, I would like to suggest to devotees that no one should have any ill feeling from this discussion that we've heard something out of the blue, but there should be a source of encouragement for us to go back and try to study the scriptures much more scrutinizingly, as Srila Prabhupada would say. And of course, consult with senior devotees of any unclarity that we may have and get them cleared. So all in all, we've been here for a little over 90 minutes. So if we were playing a soccer game, I think it will be over by now. As Africans, we love soccer. So I would like to say, if no devotee has something to ask or to share, then we may humbly request our precious speaker to give a concluding remark before we bring this to a final closure. But before we do that, like I said, if any devotee has a question, comment, reflections, you may want to ask or share. All right, Arichakra Prabhu, please you may unmute.
Haribo,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna Prabhu, and never pronounce. All glories to you, all glories to Guru Maharaj, all glories to Prabhupada, and all glories to the assembled devotees. Well, like Sahadev said, that we have to like go back and then view whatever we have heard today and try to assimilate and see how we're going. Otherwise, I was going to ask a question that was a little bit in line with what Vara Prabhu was asking. But just my thought, because I heard Vara Prabhu saying that whatever you have said was like in line with the way he understood the thing already. So my little question is, you see, sometimes I read the Bhagavatam personally. Sometimes I read the Bhagavatam and I see some contradictions, so bad, so much contradiction. But I sit back and reflect, and then later on I realize that these are actually not contradiction. Let me quickly give an example. Like you read the Bhagavatam, sometimes it says that Maharaj Parikshit was sitting at the banks of the Yamuna. Certain times also he says he was sitting at the banks of the Ganges. So how can we reconcile that? The Ganges is not Yamuna. We know there is Yamuna and there is Ganges. So, but I sit down and reflect. And another example that I'm talking about is, so I read the Bhagavatam sometimes and it says that the incarnation of Buddha. Sometimes he said incarnation of Buddha is Krishna himself who manifested as Buddha. Sometimes he said, no, he's an empowered jiva who came as Buddha. And I understand that in this whatever we are reading from Bhagavatam, we understand that for every kappa, when there is a manifestation of the Lord, he comes. Lord Brahma comes with his whole what do you call it?
You mean the Manus?
The Manus.
Yeah.
The Manus come with their whole different entourage, complete different entourage to come.
Yeah, the team of government.
Yeah, what I'm thinking, I know my thinking is useless, but what the little way I'm thinking is that couldn't it be that all these Krishna pastimes, some of the acharyas may be talking about a particular pastime from a different kappa, but because they look very similar. Them and we know Krishna is not like what do we call it? A monotonous personality. He always has different flavors. So if one acharya is speaking from a particular pastime from a different kappa, and another is speaking of the same pastime from a different kappa, there might be some what do we call flavor somewhere. But those of us reading it now, we may be limited so much that we will think that they are talking about the same pastime in a particular one kappa.
Yeah.
And in this way, I think it will cause confusion if we just want to be myopic and understand it in one particular kappa. So, well, this is my little way of understanding the whole thing. That Krishna is so unlimited that different kappas, all these manifestations happen, and maybe our acharyas, some may be describing in a different kappa, another may be describing in another kappa, and there will be a little bit of a flavor somewhere. Other than that, if that is not the case, then personally, I might need to be sit down. Somebody might need to sit me down and really school me. Other than that, because I cannot explain it to people like PRABHU was saying. My Guru Maharaj taught me how to do bridge preaching. Preach to Christians, I preach to Muslims, I preach to all these people. And we give them our books. So they read the books and then they see something which is seemingly contradictory. How am I going to answer that question if I don't understand it myself?
Yeah, it's very important. I mean, this is why a deep study of the books, and this is why Srila Prabhupada emphasized in that first purport of Chaitanya Charitamrita we read, we need to have the advantage of the writings of our Goswamis. Because Srila Prabhupada didn't give something new. He emphasized over and over again. He was bringing to us what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and our Goswamis gave. That's why this purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita wasn't just a happenstance. It was happening back at that time. The devotees, there's a conversation with one devotee walking with Srila Prabhupada where he mentions to Srila Prabhupada, yes, Srila Prabhupada, devotees have told us you should not read the books of the previous acharyas. I may post that. I may send it to Sahadev, Prabhuji could post it sometime. And he says, I never said that. And a whole conversation develops. So in the purport, then, he puts this statement there. Because these were things that were happening live that were kind of misunderstandings going on. But you're absolutely correct, and Varaha's correct too in that regard, that actually Leelas of different types. There's a Nitya Leela called Ashtakaliya Leela, which goes on, and even that has some variety in it. Naimitic Leelas means the Leelas that Krishna performs here when he comes. Then there's what is called Kadachit Leela. Kadachit Leela means like when Rupa Goswami writes a book like Vidagdha Madhav or Lalit Madhav, you won't see that in Bhagavatam at all. He describes there how the gopis end up going to mature. So that's not, these are called Kadachit Leela. These are revealed to pure Vaishnavas, like Rupa Goswami or Gopal Champu to Jiva Goswami, Brihad Bhagavatam Rita to Sanatan Goswami. You understand? So we have to be able to, one, understand that there is Kalpabhed. Kalpabhed means, like a good example is Varaha. The story of Varaha that we have in Bhagavatam is putting two Varahas together. Because one Varaha who saved the earth happened in Swayambhuva Manu. The killing of Hiranyaksha was in Chakshushammanavatar. But when he was telling the story, he put both of them together.
Yeah.
You understand? So you're absolutely right. Sometimes different kalpas will be different ways. Now, there's certain things which are standardized, like the Janma Leela, because there's some theological implication. So the theological implication is that the archetype of Vatsalya Prem in its highest degree is embedded in Nanda and Yashoda. You understand? It's not that others will not have Vatsalya Prem. Obviously, Vasudeva and Devaki have Vatsalya Prem. But our Goswami Varga, Srila Prabhupada were establishing the supremacy of the Vatsalya Prem of Nanda and Yashoda. Just like the queens of Dwarka, do they love Krishna or not? Yes, absolutely. But our acharyas have mentioned their love is called Samanjasarati. Now, we're not going to explain this to any and everybody. Of course, I worked with Guru Maharaj for 20-something years. I was there when the books were written. I was there for hours at a time when we were figuring out how to put the books together. We were going to one bookstore called Yes Bookstore in DC. We would spend 4 or 5 hours in there examining the writings of all these different people in the New Age community to see what is the best way to approach it. So I was preaching with Gurudev for 20-something years, in bridge preaching, etc., etc. So one of the things I clearly understood was that it is a bridge. And if you're going across a bridge to bring somebody into bhakti, a conversation about the nature of any kind of rust is probably not going to come up. But that, listen, try to understand what it means to be a soul versus the body. That becomes a predominant theme of discussion. And then entering into bhakti, how to practice bhakti. That becomes the next iteration. When the devotee is a little more mature and they've taken Harinam, how to perfect your chanting of Nam. When they're a little more mature and you receive Diksha mantras, how to understand Sambandha Gyan so your practice can be more mature. So it's a gradual step-by-step practice, just like bhakti itself, from Shraddha to Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Nartana, etc. It's a progression. But when you're speaking to devotees have some tenure, you need to speak to both. Just like when Sonaka Rishi was speaking at Namasharanya. The sages there, when they were questioning, said, hey, listen, there's so many different kinds of people here. So the 6 questions they asked were based on trying to satisfy all these people. But then they said, Rasa Jnanam Swadu Swadu Pade Pade. But don't forget about us. We know what is Krishna. We know what is Ras. So when you speak in such a way, we will also be nourished. Huh?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I very much agree with Richakra Prabhu's sentiment, because we all know Shukadev Goswami was a Naistika Brahmachari. But there are other culprits that this same Shukadev Goswami was actually a Grihastha. It's also revealed in some of the Puranas. So I didn't even actually realize or understand that the Varaha being described as 2 different culprits merged together. But it makes a lot of sense, as you were saying, that lifting the earth and then fighting Hiranyaksha were 2 different culprits. But if one is not very careful, you might think they all happened at the same time.
Yes.
So these things could create a little bit of cloud in our understanding. So thank you all so much. And so Prabhuji, if you may have a concluding remark to make before we bring this to a final close, that would be interesting.
Yes, so one thing which is important thing about Shukadev Goswami, because we have to think that Vyasadeva was the person who actually wrote Srimad Bhagavatam. Narada Muni was his Shiksha Guru in getting Srimad Bhagavatam. So here you have the Guru, and then Narada Muni, who's his like Guru. How will they let Shukadev Goswami speak? This becomes a question. So the Acharyas have mentioned, Srila Prabhupada writes in the 9th canto, I believe it is, he explains that the Shukadev Goswami, who was the son of Vyas, who became a Grihastha, was an expansion of the original Shukadev. That Shukadev Goswami who spoke Bhagavatam is described in scriptures. Vichakshan Bhagavat Artha Kovido. He is the parrot of Radhika who stayed in this world at their behest to speak Bhagavatam. So this is written in Bhavasara Sangraha that Vichakshan is the name of that parrot, Vichakshan Bhagavat Artha Kovido, who was the scholar, the learned person who spoke Srimad Bhagavatam. Also, where it says, Sri Sukha Uvacha, Sanatana Goswami Pad, in his commentary is mentioned, Sri here means Sri Yukta Sukh. It means that parrot connected to Sri, meaning Radhika. And the reason they let him speak is because he will know more deeply whatever it is that's to be gleaned in love of God than even Vyasadeva. Because remember, when Parvati was sitting on the lap of Lord Shiva, this is quoted in our Chaitanya Charitamrita, she asked, can you tell me about Vyas? And what was Lord Shiva's answer? Aham Vedmi, Sukho Vedmi. I know the meaning of Bhagavatam. Shukadev Goswami knows. Vyasa Vetina Vetiva. I don't know if Vyasadeva knows or not. Because it wasn't until Narada Muni came and spoke to him, and then he did meditation, Bhakti Yogena Manasi Samyak. He realized everything. And then he wrote Bhagavatam. That's why Balaram had to kill Ramaharshan and reestablish Sutta Goswami as the speaker. Because what Ramaharshan had understood was not the real gist of Bhagavatam. So many details in Prabhupada's book, but listen, one of the things that I loved about the 8.5 years of preaching in Africa was that the details of questions like this and discussions were so enlivening. Of course, in Ghana also the food was a thing also. So I'm not going to act like it was all spiritual, right? And just to add that, the visits to did you ever go to Botiana Beach when you were there in Ghana? Every Sunday, devotees would go to Botiana to the beach.
Yeah, we used to go there like every year. Gurudev will come to Ghana. Yeah, we'll go to the beach and we'll play soccer, volleyball. We ran in the sand. We raced. Yeah, very nice. Yes.
Yeah, very nice. And then you come back and it's Sunday feast time and amazing cooking. So this was one of the wonderful things that I loved about that time. And I think it was the genesis, because it was in Africa, actually, in Lagos, that I read all of Srila Prabhupada's books, purport, verse, everything for the first time. Because there were so many books in the flat at Surulere that were being given to us by the temple. So I made a vow I would read every book, every purport. Of course, you're not going to glean everything by one time reading.
Yeah.
But that was my vow then.
Yeah.
Was it? So
it's interesting you still remember these names from Ghana.
Oh yeah, Prabhuji. I mean, that was, for me, that was very, very wonderful experience in all of preaching. I took, that Prabhupada showed some mercy to me, that I would have a chance to do this seva, you know what I mean? And then the devotees also. Those devotees were already devotees from previous lives, so many. Yeah. And so that's why the collective came so fast, everything grew. Most of the devotees from previous lives who simply came now to manifest Mahaprabhu's prophecy in Africa. Because Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he told, I told the story before, but he told us he had a dream. Because he just came down to give Bhagavatam class one morning and said, okay, these two devotees are going to Africa, myself and another devotee. So then later on, he explained, Srila Prabhupada came in a dream and told me to open the door. And, of course, East Africa, Kenya and everything, already temples with everything. So he said, Prabhupada said, open the door 3 times, and then he pounded on the table. And then he said he understood that his mission now was to focus on West Africa. Yeah. And so he did that. And then when we came back, he again said, listen, now my realization is telling me what we started here in America, we didn't finish, because then I sent devotees to Africa, this and that. So now it's time to finish it. And that's when we started the Institute and all these things.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Devotees generally are like babies. And especially Mother Gail is a kid. And kids love ice cream so much. And you've shared Srimad Bhagavatam and the scriptures with us, which are much sweeter than vanilla ice cream. And therefore, Mother Gail doesn't want to give up enjoying this ice cream. I still see she has a hand up.
If your time is short, Prabhu, we can I'll call again if necessary here.
Mother Gail, we ask you to unmute, but please do not overeat this ice cream, please.
I'll have you know that vanilla is actually my favorite, especially when
I know you.
So I'm not sure if I'm being given license to ask my question or
not. You are. You are.
Short. If not, then we could talk on the phone. But if it's short, yes.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, a couple of short things. Well, one thing I've heard is that you remember we were saying, well, we don't even know, or I forget who said, I don't even know if Vyasadeva himself knows, right? And one interpretation I heard of that is that it means that, when Krishna speaks through somebody, right, it's not that they necessarily have understanding themselves of what they are speaking. It's because it's really Krishna doing the talking. Just like Prabhupada said, he would read his purports because it was actually Krishna speaking through him. So that was one, interpretation I've heard of that statement. That don't know if even Vyasadeva.
Yeah, let me clear that one first. Okay. So I don't know if there is any Shastra backing for the statement. Of course, our Srila Prabhupada was fully cognizant completely of everything. So when he would say that he was amazed by his purports, it's a kind of inner mood of astonishment of seeing Krishna work through him. And he's tasting that mood.
Yes.
But he himself was fully knowledgeable and fully spiritually realized on everything. The statement is also born from a verse in Bhagavad Gita. Vedas chasavaira hameva vejo vedanta vit veda krit eva chaham. So 3 positions are mentioned here. By the Vedas, I am to be known. So this means Krishna is the object of all Vedic knowledge, which culminates in love of God. So in love of God, this is called Vishaya Jati. It means the position of who is the worshipful objective of our love. I am also the knower of the Vedas. So as the knower of the Vedas, who knows Krishna better than Radharani? No one. So here it refers to the position of Radharani. She is the asraya of love, means she's the shelter or repository of love. So she knows Krishna best. Then a third category is mentioned, Vedanta Krit. The word Krit means who did, who wrote, who explained. So Vyasadeva is Vedanta Krit. He wrote it, but it doesn't mean, just like if I get a job where I'm supposed to write out memos or something, I may not be fully aware of the emotional dynamics or everything else about the 2 people writing. My job is just to write the memo. So at that point, prior to Narada Muni coming, Vyasadeva was doing the work because he's a Shaktavesh avatar of compiling the Vedas, doing this, doing that. That's why when Narada Muni showed up, he was saying, even though I've done all these things, I'm feeling some despondency. And then Narada Muni tells him the reason is because you yourself have not realized a particular mood of service towards Krishna. So then he writes Srimad Bhagavatam. Now here's the kicker. He writes Srimad Bhagavatam after he does Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga in Manasi, Samyak Patile Amale. Apashat Purusham Purnam. He sees everything. The last verse he writes, Nama Sankirtanayasa Sava Papa Pranasanam. He writes about the coming of Mahaprabhu. That is the last verse in the 12th canto of Bhagavatam. He then puts his pen down. He becomes Vrindavan Das Thakur in Gaur Lila. Understand?
Yeah. So.
Wonderful.
So, okay, Prabhu. I had to deal with so much competition.
I think,
but I have to rehear. But
okay, I'll call.
Yes.
This is super quick. You know, I heard from one person who said that he wasn't able to find any Shastric pramana for this Shukadev Goswami being a parrot, you know, in a previous, I don't know, something.
Yes.
So I was wondering if you
the
were
references?
Able,
yeah. The Brihat Toshini of Sanatana Goswami, Brihat Bhagavatamrita of Sanatana Goswami, the commentary on the 3rd verse of Bhagavatam by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Pad, Bhavasara Sangraha is directly mentioning, I quoted from there. So all of these play, and Ananda Vrindavan Champu of Kavi Kanapur also is mentioning this fact.
Okay. Wow, wasn't expecting all of that, but thank you.
Hare Krishna. So we thank you all so much, devotees, for your love, your patience, and a rapt attention to this Krishna Katha. And we're going to humbly request you all to kindly unmute yourselves. And we all, with one voice, one heart, chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our revered speaker, His Grace Sriman Mukunda Prabhu, for sharing his love, wisdom with us all today. Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Pancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhya Patitana Pavanabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Your His Grace Sriman Mukunda Prabhu ki Jai. Jagat Guru Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Now God assembled Vaishnava devotees ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you all devotees.